Hello, here for WKDU Philadelphia. My name is Amy, and I am honored to be joined here by Jamie Stewart of the band Xiu Xiu. Thank you so much for joining.
I am honored to join you. Thanks.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure most of the people watching this from the station will be aware of Xiu Xiu by name, but I don't know if everyone has actually listened to a Xiu Xiu track before. So, in your own words, this sounds like a children's test, but in your own words, how would you describe Xiu Xiu's sound?
Well, I mean, as one would expect, I have found myself in this position probably 700 million times. And there's two routes. One is to really describe what I think it is, which is probably the least important answer because we're making the music for other people to define for themselves. If I'm unfortunately sitting next to someone who's really chatty on an airplane and they ask me more than one question about my life. For the latter, I usually just say experimental pop music, um, or I don't know, geez Louise. But I mean, we're interested in a lot of music at this point, and it only seems to be diversifying further, which is not doing our career a whole lot of good. Um, I don't know. We're into very classic pop structures, verse chorus types of bridge songs, that sort of came into prominence in the early 60s and late 50s. But we're also into 70s British post punk and a lot of different percussion music from around the world, like gamelan and gagaku um, and electronic dance music, modern classical music, uh, folk musics of the world. Um,
Mhm.
I don't know if there's some cogent way to smush all that together. That is what our feeble attempt at making music is.
At the station, we have like the original issue of Knife Play, and it has that
Oh
little
wow.
sticker that
Okay,
has.
yeah. That still holds relatively true. There's some additions to that sticker,
I know. I remember the first time
but
I saw it's almost comical. It just looks like somebody pulled random genres. But then you listen to it and you're like, yeah, this actually tracks.
well, I'm glad it worked. Okay, good.
And I've got some questions for you about the last Xiu Xiu album, Oh No, came out like a month or two ago. And it's
February or March
in
or beginning of
February.
March, yeah.
Okay.
Beginning of March, yeah.
And it's a
Someday.
collaboration album. Yeah, it's a collaboration album, which, Xiu Xiu is no stranger to like broader concept albums. You guys got the Nina Simone record, you guys have the Twin Peaks record. You're also no stranger to collaborations. So many 7 inches with various artists over the years. But this is your first collaboration album. So I want to have some questions about that. So, like, the guest list is absolutely stacked. You got Owen Pallett, Alice Bagg, Liz Harris of Grouper, Twin Shadow, Chelsea Wolfe, just like insane track listing. And my question is like, how did you guys come about deciding to do the collaboration album? Was that something you guys always had in mind? Did it come up from COVID?
Well, okay, it's kind of a long story, but I'll try to have it make sense. We didn't start out being the idea to have it be a record of duets is not. We didn't start out deciding to do that, but um, I had some extraordinarily bad luck within a very short period of time, um, and in completely unrelated circumstances. Six different people that I was very close to personally and professionally just uh, screwed me over in different ways, but in very significant ways. And I'm a very touchy person. I get stressed out easily. I'm basically nuts, and just because all of that was happening in a very compacted period of time, it led me to have. Um, sorry to be so melodramatic, but it led me to have a nervous breakdown. And the thing that brought me out of it really quickly was that, and to my surprise, that it occurred this way is so many people that I had not heard from in years and years checked in to see how I was doing. A lot of people who are interested in the band checked in to see how things were going, and some old and very close friends of mine were incredibly thoughtful and generous with their time, and pretty like within a relatively short period of time, I became a human again. And it was all due to people's generosity and kindness. So um, the idea then became maybe doing a record of duets is a way to create a symbol of gratitude to doing things with people. I don't like people. I'm not very social. But it was people who, in this instance, really, pulled me out of the mire. So that's the long story as to why we did it.
Man, that's
And
wonderful.
some of the people on the record itself is not about that at all. Like none of the subject matter really reflects that, but the idea of doing it and sort of maybe the emotional intent behind working with people. And some of the people who we did duets with, I'm socially very very close friends with, among my best friends. And some people I have a good but just sort of professional relationship with, and some people I have never even, still to this day, because we did a lot of it during the plague, have yet to meet. Um, so there's a wide range of different types of positive relationships reflected in it.
Well, that brings me to my next question. You guys did record this during the plague.
Most of it, probably like three-quarters of it, yeah. Some of it we started a little before, but a lot of it during the, yeah.
How did you guys go about that? Were the songs written by the time you guys recorded? Was it different with each artist? How it went around?
Yeah, some of them were, and then some of them we wrote as if the record was beginning to develop. Let's see, we recorded Alice Bag in our studio, and Sharon Bennett and Angela and I, who's my bandmate and produces the records, we share a house together. So we obviously did her in our studio. And then basically the pandemic happened. So everybody else, even though a lot of the people I live in the same city as, we just did it by sending WAV files to each other, which is a fairly common way to make records these days anyway. And I think it had, although it's very exciting to be in a studio with somebody, especially somebody who you like and you admire, and there's a certain energy that gives to things. I think, um, and there was very positive results with the people that we recorded with, extraordinarily positive results. I'm ecstatic with how they did. But with a lot of the other people, because I wasn't there in the room, sort of in the corner, like twiddling my thumbs, going, "Oh, I hope this turns out really great." And they didn't have that pressure of me like freaking out around them. A lot of people, what they sent was pretty far out and things that I never would have imagined. And I think it may have allowed them to be more themselves because they're doing it in their own home studios. So they could be more relaxed. There was more freedom to try some things. Um, a couple of things that come to mind is Deb Demure from Drab Majesty. Sent like 40 vocal tracks or something, and half of them were just them making like strange vocal noises, which if you listen to the record, it's not really apparent where they're occurring. But if you take them out, it
You could
loses a
feel it.
huge sort of roiling bed. Yeah. And Twin Shadow added a fantastic saxophone to the song, which I didn't ask for, and probably wouldn't have happened if we were hanging out or he had come over. And it like that makes the song.
Mhm.
Um, so I guess that's how it came about during Love in the Time of Cholera.
Dang. And also with Oh No is there was merch dropped. Xiu Xiu merch is some of the best in the game. Literally never know what to expect to come out. And
We can't take any credit from that. It's all Janelle Abad does all of that. She's the designer, the merch designer at our label Polyvinyl. She is a maestro,
yes,
total
wonderful.
genius. Yeah,
But one of the things that came out with Oh No was the hot sauce. How did how did
that
that
was
come
her. That
about?
was her idea. Well, there's a line in one song that's more hot. The line is more hot than sad. So it's one of our very few kind of love songs, quote unquote, or literally love song, and describing someone's countenance. And she took that line and turned it into a hot sauce. And I can't really eat hot foods because I'm a wuss, but my bandmate Angela could pull a handful of hot lava and put it in her throat with some pineapple or something, and she would be ecstatic. So she described to Janelle what she thought it should the ingredients should be, and they sent it to a hot sauce company who made it. I haven't tried it, but by all accounts from hot sauce connoisseurs, it's actually quite good. It's not
Eh?
a joke. Like it's a absolutely palatable hot sauce. A friend of mine is a gourmet chef who lives in Italy, and he asked for some and said it was one of his favorite hot sauces of all time. And he's sort of a dick. Like he would have told me if it sucked. Although he is a wonderful person, to his credit, he's a dick. Like he, takes no muss, wastes no time with things of low quality, especially if he's going to eat them.
And now you got that under your belt. You can say like, I was a part of a wonderful hot sauce being
Hot
brought into
sauce
the
mania.
world.
Yeah.
Now speaking of Angela, since you said that she was the palate behind the hot sauce, she and you also just put out solo records. So Angela's is coming
Oh,
May 11th.
Angela's is coming out. The one that I put up on our Xiu Xiu 69 site actually came out in 2018. I failed to note that the vinyl came out in 2018. It had never been available digitally, and I didn't realize that until some people pointed it out. So I
I
I
was
did
so
that a few years
confused.
ago. Yeah. Angela's, however, is coming out in a couple of days. It's fantastic. She did an extraordinarily great job on it. A lot of people don't know this, that she is a shredding free jazz and modern classical piano player. So
Ooh.
one of the sides of the record is some triple A level piano improvisations by her, and she includes like free jazz in it, and as I said, some elements of modern classical. But she's also really into noir films and noir film soundtracks, so that has sort of a, I don't know. There's that edge to it. I've never heard anything like it, and the other side is kind of very menacing and beautiful drony percussion pieces.
Mhm.
I don't know. It's as two sides of a record. It takes you on, even though the content sound unrelated. It's an incredibly cogent sonic journey in and into hell and not out of hell.
I'm very excited to hear it. The two of you
It's
guys have
very very good.
both of you have like some of the most insane creative outputs I've ever seen. Just like, didn't you also come out with a book over the past year or so written
Oh,
with?
I've written it, and it's sort of done, but in the like seconds before it was going to come out, I started a relationship with a literary agent, and so he's trying to work to have it come out in maybe a more formalized,
Mhm.
more widely reachable way, and is suggesting a couple edits. So it is occurring, but it is delayed,
Okay.
uh, and to improve the quality. Which is all on me. I hope I make it better and not worse.
But yeah, so another thing, because everything revolves around the plague still when we talk. What were you guys, besides like making stuff? Like, what were you listening to or reading or watching? Like, what are media recs you got for people watching?
Oh,
I know, big question.
I as far as listening to things, I get really stuck on kind of a single path for long periods of time. So during the pandemic, for a couple months, I pretty much only listened to the composer Morton Feldman,
Yes.
who I've really loved. But I think because time. Oh, I'm glad you like him too. He's one of my all-time faves. But just time was sort of strange for a lot of people during the plague. Like it seems to be either very, very fast or very, very slow. And so many of his pieces are of very long durations. And I got into one of them. I'm really bad at remembering titles, but it's a later piece of his it's almost 6 hours long. And I never listened to it from beginning to end over 6 hours. But if I went on a walk, I would listen to it for whatever 45 minutes of the walk, and then pause it and come back to it as it was going through. And um, I don't know, those slow, kind of unclear, incredibly long, kind of post meditative pieces of music for him really worked for me in this period. Um, and
Uh
then
oh.
I kind of reobsessed with Roy Orbison and 1950s and early 60s pop. Uh, I think that's really all I've been listening to for like a year, pretty much. um, And yeah, I don't know. Reading was hard. Angela got me into reading a little more noir. She has a really large collection of noir novels, so I've been reading some of those. There's a writer named Edward P. Jones who only has 3 or 4 novels that I started reading a short story work of his. He has a one novel called, um, God, I'm so bad at titles, The Known World or In the Known World. That's really embarrassing because it's one of my favorite books of all time. But the short story I'm reading is All Aunt Hager's Children, which is also wonderful. And we just, we're film snobs, so we just watch a bunch of stuff on Criterion and Movie, or we get stoned and watch Rick and Morty. So
Mm-hmm. I've gotten real into cartoons lately. I was huge into cartoons as a kid, and now I'm just like, I gotta
it's a
regress.
decent time for cartoons right now.
Mhm.
Bob's Burgers is great. South Park somehow is still great.
Still kicking.
Simpsons occasionally fantastic. You guys still have to love it. Rick and Morty, obviously the best cartoon that has ever existed in the history of humanity.
That's another thing that I've noticed with like all the people that I like. I sound like such a snob too. Be like people whose opinions on film I respect.
It's totally fine being a snob. I talked to our booking agent about being a snob, and I was like, I don't, there was something coming up. I was like, I don't know if this is for me. Am I a snob? She's like, you put in the work. You deserve to be a snob. And if you're working at a college radio station, you have also put in the work and deserve to be a snob. It just means that you have strong feelings about aesthetics, and there's
Mhm.
nothing wrong with that.
Yes, but the thing is, like, once people reach like a certain level of snobbery, it's like high concept art film and garbage. Both are equally wonderful because they are.
Yeah, yeah, it's yeah. We can thank Andy Warhol for that.
Yes, exactly. You got to appreciate the earnestness that goes into making something that is just like it is what it is, and you got to respect it.
Yeah.
So let's see. Got more questions. Oh, I talked about this earlier, but knife play. Next February, it's going to be 20 years old. Uh,
Yeah, I feel super weird about that.
yeah. Do you want to talk about your feelings around that? And like, do you guys have any plans to celebrate it? Gonna just let it pass through, or
I mean, I guess. Okay, so the first part of that, my feelings about it, not cool. I'm not into this much time having passed at all. It's terrifying. I don't even know what the fuck happened or what the heck happened. Sorry. Um, yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem like that long at all. Like not even close. I remember most of what the recording, working on that record, and it coming out far too clearly for it to have been that long ago. Um, that said, the other side of it is, and this is not an easy thing for me to admit, but I am extraordinarily proud of the fact that that record still exists, it's still in print, and somehow we have not given up, although we feel like giving up all the time. So I don't know, it's a nice thing to consider, just like, oh, holy cats, we didn't die and we're still doing this. That seems like a total miracle. Um, so in some ways, I feel totally defeated by the Grim Reaper and time, and in some ways, I feel very inspired and lucky that okay, well, if we went this far, let's try for another 20 years.
yeah.
We'll see. Um, but I don't. I mean, we don't have any real plans to celebrate it. It's sort of like when you turn 40, you try not to tell anybody because you're embarrassed about it. So it might be kind of like that. I'm sure we'll say something. I don't know. We have some months to decide.
And over those 20 years, you guys have built up a very solid and very passionate fan base.
People are unbelievably nice to us. I've said this 10,000 times, but every band that we have ever toured with has said that the audience that comes to our shows are the best audiences they've ever played for, and I wholeheartedly agree. I do not dispute it because we've opened for other bands and I played for their audiences, and while wonderful people, I'm like, well, honestly and privately, our audiences are a little cooler.
And at least like myself and a lot of other fans, it seems to go both ways because a lot of the fans see you guys as extremely nice and extremely open and available to talk to in a way which like especially
Well, that's because it's like wonderful people. It's not like people who come to our shows are dopes. They're all really smart and cool and generous and kind and funny and just super creative. I mean, a friend of mine who's 20 times more popular and famous than we are has told me more than once that he literally hates the people who come to his shows. He is embarrassed by them and disgusted by them and wants to have absolutely nothing to do with them. And there's 20,000 times more of them. Um, so he never talks to them, but the people, as I said, who come to our shows are the coolest. So it's a pleasure to say hello to somebody,
Wow.
and the absolute least we can do is be nice if someone else is being nice.
Hmm. And even like, once again, myself and a lot of other fans, ugh, not to get heavy, ugh, but like a lot of Xiu Xiu tracks do cover some pretty heavy topics and emotions, and a lot of people find a lot of respite in the music, knowing that these heavy feelings, you're not alone in them. Like other people experience them, and that seems to have built this community of people who are extremely empathetic in a way because the music that they have related to is very empathetic as well. So, yeah, thank you for that on behalf of the fans.
Oh, thank you for making that possible. I mean, there's any efforts we put into making records are completely meaningless without somebody being you know nice enough to check them out. So I mean, it is a huge honor that people listen to them at all.
And that kind of goes back to something you were saying at the very beginning, is how like you guys make music both for yourself and for an audience. Like, how do you go about navigating both of those? Because I mean, like Juju's kind of built their sound off of what, like you said, like straight up pop music, but then like pushed to the furthest extremes you can go with it still being defined as pop music. Even on Oh No, it kind of runs the gamut from like you've got Bottle of Rum, that's a straight up pop song, and then you've got like the Owen Palette track, which is like whispering over noises, and it works together. So like, how do you guys, I guess, balance going about it, if that makes any sense?
It does. We don't really. I mean, for me, and I don't think this absolutely, and I don't know if Angela feels this way, but for me, the least amount of conscious thought that can go into music, the better. The sort of conscious mind for me is the absolute enemy of music, and just doing your best to submit to the will of what is occurring, and sort of to give your efforts over to the muse, as corny as that sounds. But for me, it is a true attempt. I don't always succeed at it, but that's where we're trying to be. So I know what you were talking about, but it's not like we decide. It's not like we're okay. This record needs to have 3 pop songs and 7 weird noise songs. Um, I mean, some of the records have very specific
Mhm.
parameters. Like this one is all duets. That's a very specific parameter. And the last one, we knew we wanted it to be largely percussion based and not really focusing on melody particularly. And we did some collaborations with some master Haitian and master Yoruba drummers. Um, the Twin Peaks records, obviously, Twin Peaks songs. We did a record called Angel Guts, Red Classroom, where we're like, okay, we're only using these 3 drum machines, these 3 keyboards, and some percussion, and that's all we get to use. So there can be parameters, but as far as the shape of the songs, um, I can't really answer it in words. I can sort of like go, oh, here's the sort of emotional goo of what went into the song, but I'm not totally sure, and I am glad to not be sure. I think if we thought about it and analyzed it, at least for me, I feel like it would anything that by some incredible stroke of luck may be sort of working, would the apple cart would tip over.
Hmm. And that's one of those, like the concept of creativity and stuff like that. But
It's a hard thing to talk about. I mean, I love reading music biographies. I love watching music documentaries, and listening to podcasts about music history. And as much as I enjoy and get a lot out of learning from and ingesting that part of life, I'm horrendous at explaining our own
Mhm.
experience with it. Um, I don't know what to tell you. Sorry.
No, no, I get it. It's amorphous.
It's not a bad question. It's a good question, but it's just for me. It's one that I don't really want to think about all that hard.
Mhm.
I think I just want to get to it.
I remember years ago, my mom went on this weird kick where she was reading a bunch of books about the concept of creativity. They were like psychological books about like, oh, how does like why do people think the way that they do and sort of thing. But there was like one quote that she told me that's always stuck with me. That's like, in order to think outside the box, you have to have a box to be thinking within, in a way. Because like
Oh
is
yeah,
like
yeah.
so often like creativity advice is just like do whatever you feel, but then when you like sit down like it's time for me to do whatever I feel, you're like, how do I do that?
It's
How do I
it's
feel?
it's yeah. If you have nothing to hold on to, it can be incredibly tough. I mean, and although our palette is very wide, we still have a specific palette. I mean, there are some things that I feel no attachment to in music, and I'm sure that we'll probably never explore.
Mm-hmm.
I the record producer John Congleton and I are old friends, and he's somebody that if I'm ever really stuck or need some advice about music, I turn to a lot. And um, when we were going through a really rough period, kind of our approach before is we were much looser about boxes to work within and or constraints, and he kind of guided us towards thinking about that a little bit more. Um, I mean, he has told me several times that if you have a completely blank slate, then there's nothing you can
Build from.
grab
Yeah.
onto at all and get started. And and a lot of times when you're first starting a band, and everything is really new, it's almost a little, it can be a little easier. You know, there's no expectations. You have no expectations yourself or real understanding of things, and it doesn't apply to every band. But as you go on, and if making records is something that continues to be important to you after some bar-filled 20 years of having done it, then you really need all the help you can get.
And even with that, like you said that you love listening to like podcasts about music and books about artists' experiences and stuff like that. But like,
Hey, I'm sorry to be a jerk. I'll be 15 seconds. I'll be right
it's
back.
okay. No,
Angela's leaving. I just wanted to say bye.
but
She'll be gone for a couple days.
yeah, like on how I feel like a lot of people, any medium, any field, when you sit down as a kid and you're like, I want to make something. I'm going to make something that doesn't exist in the world. It's going to be completely unique. And then as you get older and you start to make things, you realize how important it is to like look to the past and understand how things have evolved, and that idea of like, nothing's ever actually original. You're just kind of pulling from your astringent things that you like. Like even like doing my radio show, I came in when I first started. I was like, 2 hours of music a week, no problem. I know tons of music. And then I got like 6 weeks in, and I was like, oh my god, I do not know any music at all. And it like forced me to listen to like stuff I would never listen to before. I got into power electronics music, and I kicked off my show being like, this is gonna be like orchestral pop music, yeah. But
That's
yeah, and it's
cool.
fun.
Oh, sorry.
That's
Go
the
ahead.
other thing. It's like the more you learn about the creative world, the more it. Once again, this is the same thing I was saying. Like it's hard to talk about creativity and like art because it is so amorphous, but it's so interesting as you pick up little tidbits along the way. Like even what you were saying, like you were listening to like Roy Orbison and like early '60s pop, which is wonderful, and also like these expansive, big brain compositional works. And they're both, and like it's one of those things where like those are so different from one another, but they both hit you the same way, you know?
Yeah, I think good music is good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, there's some two ways about it, really. I think and so far as like working on things that are original and unique versus like learning your history, I think both. And I'm loath to speak in absolutes, but I might regard this as an absolute. I think in order to make the aforementioned good music, you really have to consider both approaches. I think something, and this is going to make me sound like a curmudgeon jerk, but I think something that is lacking in probably the last 10 years of music, and I think this has a lot to do with the advent of all music and all history suddenly being completely available, is that people have focused a little bit too much on learning from the past and emulating the past. And when it's out of historical or social context, it's always a little bit diluted or
Mm-hmm.
diluted, or diluted. Um, you know, uh, but like you said, at the same time, when you know what has gone on before you, you can learn from it and then move on to something original, or kind of the approach that you took, starting with something original and then realizing that you need to have in order to get better at what your original idea is, you need to know a little bit more about your history. Um, so I don't think attempting to be unique or original is something that is in any way impossible and is more important, by maybe 20% than knowing everything that has gone on before you. That pursuit, I think, is what is going to pull music out of its current doldrum, and it will happen again when people sort of understand how to use the internet better. It's obviously totally new socially. I'm just like, oh, here's this incredible archival toy. This is overwhelming. We don't know how to process this much information, and probably in 10 years it'll seem more normal, and we'll know how to move beyond the yoke that is thrown around the neck of new music. Um, but it's a good point. I mean, what you had brought up, having both paths, yada yada. Okay, that was whatever. Anyway, I probably could do like one more incredibly pretentious answer with some good questions.
And yeah, and it's one of those things like there's also the authenticity part of creative stuff, like what you were saying, like good music is just good music. And good music can be good music for different reasons. But at the end of the day, like if it feels real and right, it's part of what makes it good. But
Yeah,
also like, what's authenticity? We're all performing all the time in our lives. Well, you can pretend to be authentic. So but at the same time you
I think
feel
that's bullshit.
authenticity.
Yeah, I think that approach to music sucks. Um,
Just like so
I mean, there's
ironic, so post irony that it like is devoid
fuck
of
that.
anything.
That's complete horseshit. I hate that so much.
Same.
Um, the first label that we're on is, speaking of, which was 5RC, which was a side label of Kid Rockstars, which put out Knife Play.
Mhm.
Their motto, like, they sent Slim Moon, who at that time ran that label, and his partner Porsche started running it, and he's running it again. But one of their motto, they had like a list of 5 tenets of 5RC, and one of them was no irony. And we're like, oh my god, this is perfect for us. Yeah, and I don't know, at the time, like doing ironic music in the early 2000s was like almost a genre. Like joke
Mhm.
bands were a thing, and as I have already complained about a little bit, music cycles again, and I'm starting to see that bullshit again. It sucked when it first came out, and it sucks even more now because, as noted, it's removed from its original social and aesthetic context. So it's like a weaker version of the weakest possible approach in music that has ever been.
Mhm.
All right, so I'm a dick. I gotta go. It was really nice to talk to you, Amy.
No, it was nice to talk to you. Thank you
Thank
so
you for. Yeah, yeah. You were great, and I'm glad. I'm very, very glad that you take music seriously and care about it.
much. Okay. Bye bye.